Please welcome to the stage Tom Chappell and Eliza Chappell from Ramblers Way Farm.
Thanks, Greg. Is this on? Yep.
It's on. Yep.
Good.
I don't know if mine, oh, it's on.
And apologies to the folks on that side of the room. I think you'll be able to watch us, though, on the monitor on either side. So if the podium is in the way, you should be able to watch it that way. Can everyone hear us right now? Obviously, we just switched from the podium microphone to the wireless microphones. Is the audio okay? A little louder?
Louder.
If we could have it just a hint louder, please. Actually, Eliza, if we could have you say hello as well.
Hello.
By way of introduction, we'll maybe have them check your microphone as well, or we can do that on the fly. Obviously, I said you don't need an introduction, but I'm going to do that anyway. Tom Chappell, I think you know. Tom and Kate Chappell founded Tom's of Maine, an iconic Maine brand in 1970 with a vision of ethical entrepreneurship, all natural products, personal care products in a time where that wasn't really done at all. As you know as well, they sold controlling interests of that in 2006, and their vision is being carried on by Colgate-Palmolive now. And for a couple of years, you actually stayed on to help run the company during the transition.
Yes.
Tom has written a couple of important books on business ethics, The Soul of a Business and Managing Upside Down. They now own a sheep farm where they produce fine wool and have a regional supply chain that they created. And that's an integral part of the story of Ramblers Way, because one of the challenges for this model of trying to produce clothing made in America was, what's the supply chain? Still hearing me, everyone? Louder? I'm seeing thumbs go up. So if you could send it up, that's good?
Okay.
All right, excellent. Ramblers Way Farm, which we're going to hear about, they started in 2009. They, of course, are heavily involved. Their entire family's involved. Eliza is lead women's designer, also runs their retail store now, the word store, singular. The plan is to change that swiftly. They also have a son-in-law. You also have a son who's running the e-commerce part, who's out in California right now.
Right.
A son who I think Nick is here right now
Nick is
with
right
his wife,
here,
right in front of us. He's involved in the supply chain as well. So it really is a family business, and we're going to get a chance to talk to him about that. Eliza, as I mentioned in the piece, is a New York-trained designer who worked in Tom's of Maine in toothpaste and soap for quite a while and is glad to have transitioned into fashion now through Ramblers Way. So I think that's probably enough of a preamble for our folks at home, but obviously very impressive resumes and an impressive track record. I'm going to start with this question. As I mentioned, we want to get questions from you. We're going to have microphones. Keith, if you're there, is going to be helping to circulate microphones here in a moment. We're going to come to you rather than have you stand up or try and do anything like that. We're going to have you maybe put a hand in the air and we'll come to you as we go. We're going to have those questions here in a little bit. The first question, though, is going to come not from me. It's actually from Kim Block, my co-anchor at CBS 13 and Fox 23. After seeing the piece, she asked, what did he mean by cars? Why are we lucky he didn't do cars? So that's going to be the first question. Why were you looking to do something along the lines of Tesla, or were you looking to have us get rid of cars entirely because there's too much pollution?
I was looking for something that I felt we could make a difference at. And at the time, you know, we all know that we've been struggling with carbon emissions and just trying to get automobile industry to come around to some practices that would protect our environment long term. I certainly gave a lot of thought to those questions, but that required much more than I had time to do, and I wanted to tackle something that I'm familiar with. I grew up in the textile industry. My father had his own business, and I've worked in mills as a teenager. I love the smell of wool, and I was on familiar ground. People didn't know that I had a textile experience before toothpaste.
And so that became a transition. You actually started Ramblers Way in, I believe, 2009 or 2010.
Yes, yes.
And the model you used was involving, in fact, you were out, it's not like this is a brand new product. The clothing that you were producing and now Eliza's helping you to produce and that you're producing here in America, you had in about 300 retail stores already around the U.S.
Carrying our products.
Carrying your products.
Some would take certain, like Eliza makes the women's products. We had someone else making the men's. So of those, you'd have certain stores selecting certain parts of the brand, but it's very hard to get a brand established if they're just taking pieces here and pieces there. So when we opened our concept store that Eliza had a vision of doing, and Kate, my wife, had been promoting the idea of a retail store for some time, it was quite obvious that when Eliza opened the store in Kennebunk, you walked in and you saw nothing but Ramblers Way products, and we saw the whole product line, and it was just overwhelming. You just knew then and there that that was the way to go because it made such a strong impression. It said sustainable apparel, fine quality, you could look and feel, you could try it on, and you could get the whole idea of Ramblers Way just by walking into the store.
And we have a lot of business leaders here, obviously, so we'll get to a lot of the business questions here. We mentioned supply chain in a moment. One of the reasons why there isn't a lot of clothing made in America now is price point, but also supply. And they sort of fed on each other. It's hard to have a supply chain when you have demand from manufacturers to have that supply. You've had to reinvent, I don't want to say reinvent the wheel, but there's been some of that happening, if you wouldn't mind addressing that.
Well, putting a supply chain together in textiles in America is very difficult today. Even though I grew up in that business, I had no idea to what extent the industry had gone to Asia. Not only the work went to Asia, but the equipment did too. So we lost an entire heritage, really, of being world-class manufacturers of textiles and garments. So we had to really start from scratch. My son-in-law, Nick, and I would travel around the country to meet ranchers who were growing merino-type wool, Rambouillet wool, and we would tell them that we wanted to buy their best fibers, longest and finest, and they were delighted to know that someone wanted their sheep, their wool to stay in America. Otherwise, they were selling it to China. So we had a lot of interest, a lot of support, and then we had to find the people that made that did the scouring and the spinning and the knitting, and fortunately this country has a law that if you're going to make products for the government, I think it's 40% needs to be made in America. That's called the Berry Amendment. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, we have some world-class manufacturers still in America to do these things, whether it's spinning yarn or weaving. So we were fortunate to find those needles in a haystack. Nick and I traveled around quite a bit. And then putting together the cut and sewing and so forth, that was just horrendous. I mean, we're not making T-shirts here for $10. It's Italian-style quality. And Eliza insists on first-class quality with what we're doing. She doesn't want someone to pay a premium price and not have it really look like a premium. So we've had 6 years of really putting a supply chain together.
And I want to talk about your efforts to build out the retail model here in a moment, but now's a great chance to bring Eliza into the conversation. Do you find it easier as his daughter to get what you need as lead designer, or does that make it more of a challenge, or is it vary depending on what's going on? How would you describe that? Is there a unique challenge, and I think that a lot of people in the room can appreciate your answer on this, and living it themselves. Is there a unique challenge there, or do you find it actually is easier to approach him because you're his daughter?
I was first going to say that sounds like a trick question because I don't know many daughters that don't know how to somehow get what they need from their father. Right? But in all seriousness,
you mean more difficult with sons?
Yes, definitely. And my sister's laughing alongside of me. No, I think it's, you know, at the end of the day, he's my dad, really, he is. But when we go to work and we are in the conference room together, we have to be professional, and we try not to cross lines there. But I know that my opinion is going to be valued, and especially as a woman in the workplace, you know, that sometimes is not always the case. Yes, he values my opinion, and but we don't always see eye to eye. And I say what I need to say, and he can take what he wants and leave the rest. Sometimes I'm right, and sometimes he's right. But you know, it is a challenge at times, but honestly, it's a joy. I mean, I can't imagine doing anything else. So.
And as a designer, I'm sure a lot of folks are curious, what makes this wool, Tom, you mentioned the quality of the wool, how that's essential, not just how it's produced, but it is finest quality, because again, we're obviously talking about a premium price point when it comes to this type of clothing, so you need to have a premium product and premium quality. Eliza, maybe you can speak to, and by the way, she's wearing an outfit she designed specifically for this event here tonight that she's wearing right now. What makes this wool so impressive and so different?
Well, it's not just the wool. Actually, I want to speak to your comment about what I'm wearing tonight. You know, I would like to be able to manufacture this for our store, and I will probably be able to do that in the next 2 weeks. You can't do that if you're you know, importing fabric or manufacturing in China. The lead times are ridiculous. And I can do that right here in the state of Maine, actually. Lizette is my head stitcher, and she worked with me on this piece, and we had it finished yesterday, and it probably took a week to do. So I could do things pretty quickly. Not just me, but you know, the company here. And now I've lost my train of thought.
And I also want to ask again,
and this is my first time, so please bear with me because he's obviously a lot more.
Well, you managed to continue an interview when the phone rang, which was
Yes.
impressive as well.
Although you edited all the tears, so I thank you for that.
Well, you bring it up. I mean, when I had a chance to ask you, we didn't use this specific part in the story, when I asked you to describe your father and why he was so important to you.
Yeah.
You did get emotional in that answer. And there was a little bit of that. You were talking about your father, how you see him as such a charismatic guy and a great guy.
Yes.
What is it about your dad you think that makes him a great leader, a great person, and that's, again, not just a great business person, but a great person?
He's totally fearless. Totally fearless. He takes risks on a regular basis, and I know that he feels alone in those experiences at times, and I think most great leaders do. But yet, he continues to lead his people. He inspires us on a regular basis. You know, his charisma alone, I love it. I get excited about what we're going to do and where the business is going, and so I feel very blessed to be able to work for him, and all of these years just learning. There's so many people that would love to be in his office picking his brain, and so.
He doesn't make you read the book. He actually talks to you as well, so that's good.
Tom,
no,
I'm living the book.
Right, exactly right. I'm going to ask one more question, then I want to ask Keith and the folks to maybe circulate the room. We'll go to questions from you. Tom, I asked Eliza about you. Let me ask about Eliza in your opinion. Again, you've worked with your family since 1970, or members of your family.
Right.
Obviously, you know, Eliza and some of the other members of your family weren't there just yet, but why is it so important to you?
Well, Kate and I had a vision as a young couple that we would want to raise children that could become leaders in the world. We weren't so concerned about what school they had to get into. We were more concerned about whether or not they would come out at the other side of the process and be able to contribute to society and know what leadership is all about. So for us, with 5 children, we've made a point of understanding the uniqueness of each child and have tried to support and nurture that special gift in each child. And Eliza just has an exciting love for color, for fashion, for texture, so that for her, and you saw her in the film, just really getting into the details of that garment and the button and so forth. I'm a very conceptual person. I have no patience for details. And so I admire someone who can see the whole vision of the garment in her head and then put it together, but then to be exacting to the final piece. So whether it's her work in design or whether it's in the store, we knew that when she had summer jobs working for clothing stores in Kennebunkport and so forth, You would go into the store, and it was quite clear that Eliza was the person in the store that everyone was interested in asking for help, because she just brings the place alive. So this is her gift, whether she's passionate about what she's doing, she loves what she's doing, and for Kate and me, it's really about providing opportunities for each of our children where they can thrive in those situations. We have the same, we have children who have their own businesses. Our son Matt has a business in Yarmouth called Gather. This is a creation of his own. He's very much inspired by his mother. We have a son in San Francisco that has a food business. He's sort of the junior Toms of Maine in the family. And then we have a son, our oldest son, who runs the website for this business. And we have our daughter, our older daughter, Sarah, who has a unique equine therapy business that's a leader in the country. So we're very fulfilled as parents, knowing that we've had an objective and have followed through with that, and it hasn't been easy. Now, to go into business with your family after you've done something like Toms of Maine sounds kind of homey and fun, but it turned out to be the most difficult industry that you could attempt to do anything. No one wants to invest in the apparel industry because of its record to failure. And you can understand why, when you get into the business, it's just so full of things that need to be done well and exactingly. We buy the wool and we're responsible for it all the way through till the garment gets in your... you have to want to, for me, demonstrate to others that doing business by values is a very unique business concept, that by believing in your set of values, you can actually change the world. We did it at Toms of Maine. We are in the process of making a difference. I've been invited to speak at the American Apparel and Footwear Association to talk about how do you do this in America, because the apparel industry in the world doesn't know how to do it in America, and we've been invited to tell our story.
And they're rooting for you, is my understanding as well.
Absolutely, they really are. I think when you have the opportunity, why not take, my wife's an artist, I'm a businessman, why not take those skills out, raise the second generation to learn how to do these things, and then try to get those together that want to be part of it and go out and make a difference.
Let's go ahead and get a question from the audience here. Again, with the lights I can't actually see, so if someone has a microphone and has a question, go ahead and say boo or something to us right now. Is there a microphone out there with someone? Anyone have a question? I see a hand right there. We have a hand right here. Thank you, Keith. Oh, there's one as well. So, and then let's have a next person. Go ahead, Keith, if you would work the room a little bit, and if you see someone else, a couple other people could put their hands in the air too to maybe be next. We'll go there next. Sir, your question.
What is your market for your product?
We make very fine natural fiber clothing, sustainably made so that the product is easy on the environment, ethically made, and we sell to really demographically Gen Xers and boomers, and also millennials who care very much about the environment and locally made, locally sourced products. So our market is fine clothing, which consists of shirts for next to the skin, for sweaters, dresses, vests, many different categories of clothing. And we use a particular breed of sheep for all of our wool. It's called Rambouillet. It's a merino type, and it's unique, and it's unique because it has a very long fiber and a very fine fiber, and then it's spun into yarn with a textile process called worsted spinning, and that's where the filaments are all running parallel to each other so that when it's turned into a yarn, there's nothing sticking out to make it poke at you, at your skin, to make it scratchy. So we have a unique idea, and lightweight, soft, very unlike wool. People don't believe it is wool. So it's a year-round product, and then we make Pima cotton clothing too. We're making our own fabrics, we're doing the design, and we have a cutting studio and sewing studio in Kennebunk where we have 4 seamstresses. We buy about 40,000 pounds of wool a year, which comes from probably 5,000, 6,000 sheep around the country. So it's a national business, and for people that want finer but also very utilitarian clothing that lasts a long time and protects your body and keeps you comfortable.
And I encourage anyone, I find it interesting, I did feel the material, it doesn't feel like wool. I think there's a perception problem perhaps. If people think wool is scratchy,
Yes.
uncomfortable,
Right.
that's a barrier for you that you have to overcome when it comes to the
Yes.
perception of the consumer.
Correct.
It does feel like cotton when I felt it.
Yeah.
Well, and Angie said it feels like butter.
She did
so.
say, I think she said butter, actually, so. I think that's a perception problem. I don't want to hog the questions though. Do we have a next question from the group? Right here.
Sure. Hi,
Please identify yourself.
I will. Hi, my name is Leslie Lagerquist, and I am connected
There's
to
a plant
him.
in the room.
Actually, I own my own business, so I'm here legit. But my question is, how did you become a risk taker in business? Is it something innate, or is it something that you learned?
Do you want to
Well,
speak?
Either of you, yeah.
sure. Gosh, for me, I think it's a little bit of both because, I mean, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family and I saw my father taking risks. I mean, we called it the 6th child. There are 5 of us, so it was the 6th child. And so I witnessed him taking risks on a regular basis. I think that probably has given me a little bit more courage to take my own risks in life in modeling that example. I see my mother doing the same thing too. So. In her own personal art career. But I also think that there are some people that are just more apt to, jump off that cliff and just trust, that it's going to be whatever it's going to be. And I'm just lucky that I have my family to support me in those experiences. So.
I think what helps me take risk is to know who I am and what I want to see happen. And it's a deeply personal thing, that you have something that you vision the world could use and you just want to see it happen. That's very different from sitting in a business school doing market research on where the gaps are in product opportunities, and you just objectively are looking at putting together a business plan that fills that gap. The fact is, if you're going to take risks, you've got to be passionate about it, you have to be durable, and you have to sustain a lot of fear and struggles of all kinds. So it's very important that what risks we take, they are calculated. A lot of people think that what I do is just wildly risky. For me, they're not. They are decisions to put something in place, in space, in the world, and have a reasonable calculation that you can do it. And you can miscalculate for sure.
I think we have another question from this side of the room.
Hi, Tom. Peter Fendler.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Tom. It's curious about when you sold Tom's of Maine and the family impact of that. Bittersweet thing, company grew to such a success. Having to sell that outside the family as opposed to keeping it in the family, and how that then transitioned into decision with regard to Ramblers Way.
Well, Kate and I got the family together to talk about the prospect of finding a strategic buyer for the business. And I think the children differed in how they greeted that news. And I think it was clear that we had done what we knew how to do. We had demonstrated the financial viability of it, the marketing viability, and it was now an asset of considerable value that, put in the hands of the right corporate steward, could actually take it and make more of it than we could. So I think that was a good decision for us, and I know that our children have taken what they've learned, and we said at the time, we didn't build this business for you to have, we built this business to show you what can be done. And so they took what we did as an example of what they could do in their own lives. And so we have 3 of our 5 children that have started their own businesses, are successful, struggling but successful. We have 2 other children that are artistic and creative and working in this business. So we are a creative family, and that's the way we have to operate. So when it came time to deal with the wealth, you realize that wealth in itself is not something that's going to make you happy. You've got to be useful, and if all I had to do was serve on 4 or 5 boards of directors and play golf, I wouldn't have thought of that as useful for me, because I like starting things and creating things. So I think everyone understood that for myself, I needed, I was still young and needed to do something that motivated me. This challenge being what it is, that is an apparel company, was a bigger challenge than we thought it would be. But like anything else, we figured it out and we wrestled it to the ground, and we have it where we want to now. We're growing it, and it's becoming successful. So these are all just personal decisions, I think, Peter, and you make them together, and you try to help people understand. And some of the children have wanted to be involved in the business. Kate's very much involved as a director and advisor to me. Others have taken that entrepreneurial edge and gone on and done their own thing and built their own businesses. So I think it was healthy.
And I'll look to Keith. I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Over here.
It's John Lemieux. Can you talk about it with Tom's of Maine, where you took your local business, the vision that you and Kate had, and decided to become regional, and that thought process and the steps between this vision and implementation?
And by inflection point, you mean what were the moments when we made strategic growth decisions?
Correct, and how you worked that through from what I assume was a small business that you found rewarding, yes, to the next step.
Well, I think, as I recall the journey, we were serving a specialty class of trade, these up-and-coming natural food stores, and they were selling brown rice and granola and seaweed, and I came along with shampoo and soap. And it didn't contain any of the additives that they were trying to avoid. So we provided a mindset for everyday personal care that was already the mindset of their shopper. We built a business nationally in these independent natural food stores and came to a point where to continue to grow, we needed to think about taking the product from those customers that we regarded that were health committed, the real specialists of health on the one hand, to an audience that was health concerned. You know, health concerned, they didn't know as much, but the health concerned people were buying products in the supermarkets and drugstores and didn't want to go into a health food store at the time. So we simply professionalized the leadership team and modified the communications of the packaging so that it was now more open to that general consumer. And you know, then you hit the road and you go out and sell to these drug chains around the country. So we built a national brand. We were in, I think, about 30,000 stores when we sold it to Colgate. And while you're building the brand, you build the categories in the brand from toothpaste to deodorant and soaps and so forth. So they're all moments of what people have said to me were very deliberate decision-making, deliberate execution. We didn't try to go too fast, and we built a soap business, we built a toothpaste business, we built a deodorant business, category by category. So I've learned that being deliberate is really important because people have to settle in on what you are and get used to what you are, and they'll take your next act if they like what you're doing now. Does that help?
And you don't have to have a massive market share. For example, you don't need to replace all, we'll use Colgate, since toothpaste in order to make a difference and to have a success in that market. You could have a relatively small sliver of the pie, and if it's a big enough pie, you find success.
Yes, and what we call that, Greg, in marketing is that you start with a niche, and then you grow that niche to a segment, and then you grow that segment to a category. So when you hear people talk about, quote, the naturals, you know, we're the naturals, but we were a niche.
And soon, and again, you hope Ramblers Way will do the same. That there will be, your goal is not to supplant $12 T-shirts in the Target stores. No offense to the Target stores, because I shop there too. But that's not your goal in this, correct?
No. In fact, what we've had to do, because the world has changed since we sold Tom's, the technology is creating how we go to market differently today, how you shop, and we've had to switch our marketing strategy from selling to the independent clothing store to selling direct, either on the website or now in our own stores. And the reason is there's not room enough for everybody with an American-made product. We're paying American prices for raw material. We're paying livable wages with 401ks and so forth to the people that are sewing our goods. And we have to get this unique product to the consumer at a price that they will consider our proposition. And to do that in today's technology, smartphones and so forth, you've got to be flat. And so we're on this course of a new strategy, and it's only because the world has changed since we sold Tom's of Maine. It's totally amazing.
And I know there's many more questions out there, but we're out of time, unfortunately. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Tom and Eliza Chappell. And learn more about Ramblers Way online.
And can I say,
please.
Come to the store.
Come to the store.
Come to the store.
Give your location,
Very
Eliza.
experiential.
Where is the store, for those looking for it?
It's 119 Main Street in Kennebunk, and we're open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 6, and we're open Monday, 10 to 5. So, and starting in July, we'll be open on Sundays as well.
There's a good chance you'll see Eliza there on any given day as well. Tom, you wanted to say?
And just to say how grateful we are to you and to Catherine and Angie and Keith for this wonderful evening and for this special honor. It's really nice to be with you tonight.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And Catherine and Keith are...
And thank my team here from Ramblers Way.
Dad, Kathy, they have something for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Eliza. Yep. You want to get out of the way? If you want to use the stick, it may be easier for them if, of course, now I've just moved them. That's all right.
You come around the other side, Keith. Thanks,
Great.
Catherine. Great.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Tom.
Greg,
Dad.
so much.